everyone. Welcome to this month's edition of North Central Outdoors. I'm your host, Nathan Karch. Today I just want to give you a brief update of kind of what's been happening on our waterways this far. We are past our halfway point in our boating season of 2018. I always consider July 4th, that's pretty much our midpoint through the season, but we've got plenty of good days left. On into August and September, usually people are still enjoying the beautiful days that are yet to come. It's going to be hot. We've been experiencing a lot of hot weather. It's perfect for boating and swimming, so people have been taking advantage of it. But I just wanted to touch base with y'all just on kind of some issues that we've been seeing so far during this boating season that maybe we have not done a good enough job kind of getting that information out to you. So I want to touch on that. One being our paddlecraft industry, and especially in this area, specifically the Caney Fork. But a lot of our smaller river systems, the Harpeth, the Red River, we are an 11 county district, and this is District 21, and it's basically northern Middle Tennessee. So that's probably what I'm going to be referring to in all this, on these waterways and everything like that. So our paddlecraft industry, it's just exploded. The commercial traffic is just greatly increasing in number. But also, you know, the private sector of it too. If you own a kayak, a canoe, a paddleboard, or anything like that, and you like to float on some of the smaller river systems, this pertains to you. So as the rental companies, most of the time, they do a pretty good job in discussing with their customers and their renters on what to do and what not to do, and the equipment required, especially the life jackets and everything like that. Some of the private citizens, they don't understand that, and I want to reach out to you and just let you know, because we've been encountering a lot of this lately. So what defines a paddlecraft between a non-paddlecraft is basically the ability to navigate the waterway. If it is designed to have a paddle or an oar, and specifically a raft, a canoe, a kayak, or a paddleboard, that is a paddlecraft. Non-paddlecraft would be maybe an inner tube, or you know, you just swimming down the waterway. And it's kind of backwards. You know, a lot of these laws, you're going to kind of see that it's just a little strange, and we don't write them, we just enforce them. So bear with me. But so if you were to swim the river system and not have a life jacket on, that's perfectly fine. You could swim for 6 to 8 miles and just float on down. If you're in an inner tube and you just got a cooler on board, you're fine. You don't have to have a life jacket. But the moment that you have the ability to navigate those waters on a vessel, then you have to have a life jacket. So make sure it's U.S. Coast Guard approved. If you are 13 years of age or older, it's just got to be on board. If you're 12 and under, it's got to be on at all times. Make sure that it's U.S. Coast Guard approved. Throw cushions do not count. So what I'm referring to as the throw cushion is, most people know it as the square device, and it's specifically to be used in an emergency situation where a person is struggling to stay afloat, and you are just to throw it out to them, toss it out to them in that emergency situation. I don't know if anybody's ever tried to throw out an actual life jacket, but it catches a lot of wind and it doesn't work so well. So these devices are just for an emergency situation, to throw it out to somebody, not to be used. A life jacket has to be buckled and strapped down, so there's no way to do that with a throw cushion anyway. So that will not count as your PFD on board if you have one of those. But it's recommended to have one, and they're very comfortable to sit on. If you are going to be out past dark or legal sunset, legal sunset doesn't mean it's going to be completely dark. So there's several apps that you can see the legal sunset and legal sunrise. And just get that app, make sure that you pay attention daily if you're going to be out on the waterways. But at legal sunset, you have to have lights on. So all of the rest of the water traffic, they have their navigation lights on. They're red and greens, and they're all-around white light. So the all-around white light pertains directly to kayaks, paddlecraft, anything of that nature. while it's not required by law that you have a 360-degree visible white light at the highest point of your vessel, you do have to have some type of white light, whether it be a flashlight, something that you can put on your head, a cell phone, any type of white light that you can signal to other vessels in the area that you are right there, because we get a ton of bass boats that fish night tournaments and stuff like that that are going 50, 60 miles an hour, and nobody has the ability to paddle that fast to get out of their way. So we want you to be illuminated. We want you to be visible. So have that available. A lot of other things that we've been encountering with just our other boats that are powered by mechanical, electrical means, by outboard motor or inboard motor, things of that nature, diesel, gas, is the lack of fire extinguishers. And if they have one on board, then they are not in good working condition. So make sure that you have a good working fire extinguisher, whether that be the pop-up emitter type or it actually has a gauge. Check it before you put it in storage for the year, and check it once you get it out of storage. You know, I recommend you check it every time you go out, but at least those 2 times a year. If you have the gauge, there's no room for error there. You can obviously see if it's in the red or green, if it's good or bad. The pop-up emitter has to have that. It's usually a yellow tab. If it doesn't have the tab, then it's no good, because you can't actually test it. Once you push down on that tab, it's going to spray everywhere. So there's no way to test it. So have the tab in there and make sure that if you push it down, it pops right back up, because if it stays down, it's bad. And I always recommend keeping a couple on board just for safety precautions. It's always a good practice to have that. Also, the navigation lights on just normal boats, when you are at anchor, or you're moored, you always have to have that white light on. That is the one light that always has to be on. If you're anchored or moored, you can actually have your red and greens off, but your 360-degree white light that's visible from everywhere, and it's got to be the highest point of your vessel. And a lot of manufacturers do not do that. So if you need to make an alteration to make it visible from 360 degrees, please do so, because it's very, very important. There's a lot of pontoons out there and ski boats, especially these newer wakeboard boats. The bimini tops, they obstruct the view on the all-around white light, so please be aware of that, because there is a lot of times where you see these low-profile bass boats or low-profile ski boats, and you can see the red and greens, and they might not even be LED, they might be halogen, so they're not very visible. And if you're sitting there low in the water, you can't really be seen, so make sure that that white light is on. But when I'm referring to the red and greens, I just want to establish kind of a basic foundation of navigation for the waterways. You know, we don't have traffic lines or anything like that. We've got navigational buoys, but they're not always, you know, in the best placement. They change with the current sometimes, and they move. And I just want to give a little foundation for a lot of boaters that are not familiar with the red and green navigation lights. These are specifically for navigation. Your white light is more or less just to be seen all around by every vessel, but these are your main navigation lights. So if you see red and green, that means a vessel is headed directly towards you or pointing in your direction. If you only see that white light, these are not going to be visible. That means you are approaching the rear end of that vessel, the stern of that vessel, and it's going away from you or just pointed away from you. If you see the green, that means that you are seeing the starboard side of that vessel. Green means that you are the go-ahead, that you are the stand-on vessel, and you just maintain your course. If you see the red light, this means this vessel is the stand-on vessel, and you are looking at its port side, and just like a traffic light, the red means stop, green means go. Okay, so that is geared towards you. So whatever color you see, you do, you know, that you maintain that action. So green, go. Red, stop and give way. So red is the give way vessel, and you are to alter your course. And whenever you alter your course, obviously you have to, you know, take appropriate action to avoid a collision. So it's got to be early and substantial to avoid that collision. But normally by navigation standards you are to turn toward your starboard side or turn right, because if you see this vessel, if you're coming this way, you're actually going to turn right and you're going to avoid that collision because you're going to be approaching the bow of that vessel, and it's going this way, so you're never going to collide that way, and just vice versa if you see the green light. So you're going to be give way, and then give way on the red light and the stand on the green light. If you are going out for any reason and you know you're going to be out at night, please check your lights before you go out. We've encountered a ton of people who, you know, might have said they were working before they left, and they just, you know, blew a fuse or the bulb went out or something like that. Make sure that you please just have some extra fuses on board, extra bulbs, just in case you encounter that situation, because it's basically like operating without headlights on the road on a vehicle. If you can't be seen, it's a very, very dangerous situation for you, everybody on board, and everybody else out on the lake. And make sure that you have just a little toolkit. You can get that at Lowe's, Harbor Freight, Home Depot, anywhere that sells tools. Just get a small toolkit, just a generic thing that has wrenches, screwdrivers, some sockets, just the basic stuff to be able to repair something. Because you might have just a really, really minor issue, but it could possibly turn into a major issue if you don't have the tools to fix it. And we want you to get home safe. That's our main priority. So make sure you have all that extra stuff. Some reckless operation violations that we've been encountering a lot, especially with pontoons, and this actually does pertain to a lot of the rental companies. I guess for whatever reason they don't tell their renters this, but whenever you see an upper sun deck or the lower sun deck that's outside the railing, you cannot be on that deck while the vessel is underway. So if it is not encapsulated by railing, you can't be there. I know there's usually railing on that upper deck, but if it's an upper deck, you can't be there. It's got to be inside of the railing on the lowest portion of the vessel. And then a lot of times we'll see people riding at the very bow. They'll have their legs dangling off the pontoons. That is very, very dangerous, because if that operator were to run that vessel aground, if you were to hit a log or a rock or anything like that, you'd be ejected and thrown in the water and possibly run over. And we've encountered that situation many times working accidents, and it's never a good outcome. That operator does not have enough time to shut that engine off or turn that vessel to avoid you. So basically you get hit by that prop, and it's never a good outcome. So please ride inside the railing at all times. And with bass boats, wakeboard boats, ski boats, anything like that, make sure that you're riding inside the gunwales. So that is in the innermost portion of the boat. You can't be riding up on the upper deck. If you've got that sun deck on the wakeboard boats, and the back portion of the stern, you can't be riding there while the vessel's underway. You can sit there all day if it's anchored or moored or anything like that, but only when it's underway. You can't be sitting there. Another thing, there's 2 new boating laws that went into effect as of July 1 of this year. And one is the move over law. That's very, very similar to just the regular traffic law that pertains to the road. It's saying that if you see blue lights, you are to go to an idle speed and no wake speed. So it's just considered a no wake zone at that point if you see those blue lights. This is not pertaining to when we are running code on the waterway. So if we're responding to a call or an incident and you see blue lights, you do not have to slow down to a no wake speed, although, you know, it would be appreciated, just so we are not having to deal with larger wakes. But please just move out of the way. But a lot of these channels are very narrow, they're windy. Make sure that you can get out of the way in a safe way, because we don't want to be responding to your call at that point either. So don't put yourself in harm's way to get out of our way. But if you see us stopped with the vessel and you see blue lights, please, within 100 feet, and this is what the law is pertaining to, 100 feet of our vessel, slow down to an idle speed only, and then as soon as you pass, get out of that 100-foot range, you can get back up on plane. The other law that is passed is directly pertaining to boat renters. This has kind of always been a law. I know I've stressed on previous segments, boating education. those that are born after January 1st of 1989 are required by law to have boater's education. It's just like having a driver's license, but it's a driver's license for the water. It's your boater's license. So you have to have that certification in order to operate a boat. Renters are now having to do that. That was the only exemption up until this point. Most renters would watch a 15-minute safety brief, and the rental company would tell them all the safety precautions, how to operate, what to avoid. They're still doing that, but you actually have to have this certification before you go rent a boat now. So if you have a certification from another state, you're good to go. It's reciprocal. Kind of like our handgun carry permit laws, it's recognized in most of the U.S. So if you have one from another state, or you have one in Tennessee and you're wanting to go out of state to operate a boat, you're fine. And you never have to take this again. It's like a driver's license. Take it once and you're good to go. One more thing I'd like to touch on before we wrap up this month's edition is our velvet hunt. You've probably heard rumors about it, and it's true. It's been passed. Our commission has set a date for a velvet hunt. It's going to be buck only, private lands only, and archery only. I know that's a lot of onlys, but private lands, archery, and buck only. It's going to run 3 days. It's going to be August 24th through the 26th. It is going to be hot, so prepare for that. Put your bug spray on and everything like that. State regulations, just like normal deer season, that all applies to that hunt. We know a lot of people are probably going to be supplemental feeding at that point, you know, to basically prepare yourself for the September archery season. So if you are wanting to hunt those 3 days, make sure that your bait is up 10 days prior. That doesn't mean, you know, stop baiting. That means make sure that all your bait is up 10 days prior to hunting that, and you'll be good to go. That wraps up this month's edition of North Central Outdoors. I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of August and July, and we'll see you next time.